Good evening, everyone. Imagine for a moment a fire burning in your home. A small flame in the fireplace brings warmth, light, and comfort to your family. But that same fire, uncontrolled, spreading through your walls, can destroy everything you've built in minutes. This is anger, a force that resides within each of us, capable of both motivating righteous action and devastating everything we hold dear. Tonight, I want to take you on a journey through thousands of years of Jewish wisdom, from the Talmud to the Mussar movement, to explore one of humanity's most challenging emotions. Our sages didn't just acknowledge anger, they studied it with surgical precision, understanding its roots, recognizing its dangers, and most importantly, developing practical strategies to master it. The Torah tells us that we are created B'Tselem Elohim, in the image of God. Yet our sages teach us that when we give in to uncontrolled anger, we temporarily sever that divine connection. Tonight, we'll explore why they considered this so serious, and more importantly, how we can reclaim our higher selves. The Hebrew language, rich in nuance, offers us multiple words for anger, each revealing different dimensions of this complex emotion. There's kas, which describes frustration and vexation. There's haima, meaning fury or wrath, literally related to heat. And there's if, anger that literally means nose, referring to the flaring of nostrils in rage. The Talmud in Tractate Nedarim makes a profound observation. Anyone who becomes angry, it is as if they worship idols. This seems like an extreme statement. How can anger be compared to idolatry, one of the gravest sins in Jewish tradition? Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch explains this brilliantly. When we worship idols, we place something else at the center of our universe instead of God. Similarly, when we become angry, we are essentially saying, "My will is supreme. Reality should conform to my expectations. My ego is the center around which everything should revolve." In that moment of rage, we have made an idol of our own will. The psychology of anger in Jewish thought. The Vilna Gaon, one of the greatest Jewish scholars of the 18th century, taught that anger stems from a fundamental misunderstanding of reality. He wrote, "Anger results from a person's foolish belief that they could have prevented what happened and that they are in control." Think about that. We become angry when reality doesn't match our expectations, when someone cuts us off in traffic, when our children don't listen, when our spouse doesn't understand us, when life doesn't go according to our plan. The medieval work Orhot Tzadikim, The Ways of the Righteous, offers another insight. Anger often masks other emotions. Behind anger lies fear, hurt, shame, or a sense of powerlessness. A parent who angrily yells at a child who ran into the street isn't just angry, they're terrified. A spouse who explodes over a minor mistake may be feeling unappreciated or insecure. Understanding this depth is crucial to addressing anger at its root. Now, our tradition isn't entirely opposed to anger. The Torah itself describes God as becoming angry, and there are moments when moral indignation is appropriate. When Moses saw the golden calf, he shattered the tablets in anger, but this was righteous indignation at a profound betrayal of everything holy. The Rambam makes a critical distinction in his Mishneh Torah. He teaches that a father or teacher may display controlled anger to educate or establish boundaries, but internally they should remain calm. It's a performance of anger without the inner fire, like an actor playing a role. But here's the crucial point. The Talmud states that even for the sake of heaven, one should only pretend to be angry. True, uncontrolled anger, even when we think we're justified, almost always causes more harm than good. Let me share with you some striking statements from our sages about the spiritual dangers of anger. The Talmud in Tractate Shabbat teaches, "One who tears his garments in anger, one who breaks vessels in anger, and one who scatters money in anger should be regarded as an idolater, because such are the wiles of the evil inclination." Rabbi Yisroel Salanter, founder of the Mussar movement, went further. He taught that in the moment of anger, a person loses their Zelem Elohim, that divine image we mentioned earlier. It's as if a cloud passes over the soul, blocking out the divine light within us. The Zohar, the foundational work of Jewish mysticism, states that when a person becomes angry, their soul leaves them and is replaced by an evil spirit. Now you might hear this as superstitious, but consider the psychological truth it conveys. Have you ever said or done something in anger and later thought, "That wasn't me. I don't know what came over me"? In those moments, we literally aren't ourselves. Our higher consciousness departs, and something more primitive takes over. The Talmud in Tractate Pesachim tells a fascinating story. Hillel, known for his infinite patience, would always teach gently. One day, people came to him with a question on a day when he was distracted and somewhat irritated. Because he responded with even a hint of sharpness, he forgot a crucial law. The Talmud uses this to teach us. When anger enters, wisdom departs. Modern neuroscience confirms what our sages knew millennia ago. When we're angry, the amygdala, the primitive part of our brain, hijacks our prefrontal cortex, where rational thinking occurs. We quite literally become less intelligent when we're angry. How many times have you made a decision in anger that you regretted when you calmed down? The Rambam writes in his Shemona Perakim that anger clouds judgment so severely that an angry person cannot distinguish between good and evil, right and wrong. This is why the Torah warns judges never to judge when angry, because justice becomes impossible when the mind is inflamed. Perhaps most tragic are the interpersonal consequences of anger. The Talmud in Tractate Gittin records that the destruction of the Second Temple and the exile of the Jewish people from their land resulted from senseless hatred and anger between people. Think about the relationships damaged or destroyed by a few words spoken in anger. The Hafetz Haim, Rabbi Yisrael Meir Kagan, taught that words spoken in anger are like arrows released from a bow. Once unleashed, they can never be retrieved. You can apologize, you can regret, but you cannot unsay them. The wound may heal, but the scar often remains. In the book of Proverbs we read, "A soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger." Anger is contagious. When we respond to someone's anger with our own, we create a cycle that escalates. Families have been torn apart, friendships destroyed, communities fractured, all because anger was met with anger rather than wisdom. While our ancient sages didn't have modern medical equipment, they intuited what science now confirms. Anger damages the body. The Rambam, who was both a rabbi and a physician, wrote extensively about how anger causes physical illness. He noted that anger disrupts digestion, causes heart palpitations, and weakens the immune system. Today, we know that chronic anger increases the risk of heart disease, stroke, weakened immune function, and numerous other health problems. The Talmud teaches that anger actually shortens life. In both a spiritual and physical sense, this is true. Now comes the most important part. What do we do about it? Our sages weren't content to simply identify the problem. They developed practical, actionable strategies for mastering anger. The Ramban advises us to train ourselves to view every situation from a perspective of humility. When something goes wrong, instead of asking, "How dare this happen to me?" we should ask, "What is this situation teaching me? How is this an opportunity for growth?" The Baal Shem Tov taught that everything that happens to us is guided by divine providence. Even when something frustrating occurs, it's part of a larger pattern we may not see. This doesn't mean we become passive or accept injustice, but it means we don't take everything as a personal affront. Practical exercise. When you feel anger rising, pause and ask yourself 3 questions. Will this matter in 5 years? Might there be an explanation I don't know? What opportunity for growth does this present? The Talmud in Tractate Avot teaches, "All my life I grew up among the sages, and I found nothing better for a person than silence. When anger strikes, our natural impulse is to speak, to lash out, to defend ourselves, to attack. But the Orhot Tzaddikim teaches that silence is anger's greatest enemy. When you feel rage building, count to 10. Better yet, don't speak until the next day. The Hafetz Haim used to teach, before you speak in anger, take a drink of water. The act of drinking forces you to pause, to breathe, to create space between the stimulus and your response. In that space, wisdom can enter. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov taught a practice called Hitbodedut, secluded meditation. When anger arises, remove yourself physically from the situation if possible. Go to another room, take a walk, create physical distance that mirrors the emotional distance you need. Pirkei Avot commands us, judge every person favorably. This doesn't mean being naive or ignoring harm, but it means assuming the best about others' intentions. Someone cuts you off in traffic, perhaps they're rushing to the hospital. Your spouse forgot something important, perhaps they're overwhelmed with stress you don't know about. Your child is defiant, perhaps they're struggling with something they can't articulate. Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev was famous for always finding merit in others. Once, he saw someone eating on a fast day. Instead of anger, he looked up to heaven and said, "Master of the universe, see how honest your children are. Even when breaking a fast, they won't do it in hiding." Practical exercise. Make a practice of creating 3 possible benign explanations for any behavior that triggers your anger. Train your mind to automatically search for the good. The Mussar movement, particularly Rabbi Salanter, emphasized Heshbon Hanefesh, accounting of the soul. Keep a journal of your anger episodes. When do you get angry? What triggers you? What time of day? When you're hungry, tired, stressed about something else? Understanding your patterns is the first step to changing them. You might discover that you're most irritable when hungry. The sages acknowledge this. They wouldn't fast on certain joyous days, partly because hunger makes people irritable. Or perhaps you're triggered by feeling disrespected because of childhood experiences. The Vilna Gaon taught that we should work on one character trait at a time, intensively, for 40 days. Choose your biggest anger trigger and focus on it exclusively. Every day, visualize yourself responding to that trigger with calmness. Mentally rehearse your desired response. Rabbi Levitas of Yavne taught, be exceedingly humble in spirit. The sages identified pride as anger's root cause. When we believe we're entitled to certain treatment, deserving of certain outcomes, above certain indignities, we set ourselves up for anger when reality doesn't comply. The Talmud tells us that Moses was the humblest of all people and also the calmest. These are connected. Humility means accepting that we're not the center of the universe, that our needs and preferences aren't paramount, that we're part of a larger whole. Practical exercise. Each day, identify one way you're not better than others. Recognize your own flaws and limitations. This isn't about self-deprecation, but about accurate self-assessment. When you see your own imperfections clearly, you become more patient with others. Pirkei Avot teaches us, who is mighty? One who conquers their own inclination. Think about your deathbed. Looking back on your life, will you regret that you didn't get angry enough? That you didn't yell more, didn't hold more grudges, didn't win more arguments? Or will you regret the relationships damaged, the words you can't take back, the peace you sacrificed? Rabbi Nachman of Breslov taught that depression and anger are closely linked. Both come from focusing on what's wrong rather than what's right. He prescribed joy as an antidote. Make a practice of gratitude. Before bed, list 3 things you're grateful for. A mind filled with gratitude has little room for anger. Don't underestimate the physical. The Rambam, as both physician and rabbi, advised regular exercise, adequate sleep, and healthy eating. Modern science confirms that these reduce irritability and improve emotional regulation. When you feel anger rising, take deep breaths. The simple act of breathing deeply activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which calms the body. Our sages intuited this when they advised counting to 10 or drinking water. Both force you to breathe. Finally, the Musar approach teaches us to view every struggle as a teacher. When you become angry, after you've calmed down, ask, what is this teaching me? What vulnerability is this revealing? What do I need to work on? Perhaps your anger at your child's messiness reveals your own need for control. Perhaps your anger at being interrupted reveals insecurity about your importance. Perhaps your anger at injustice reveals a calling to act for change, but in a constructive way. What happens when we master anger? The Talmud teaches that one who holds back their anger merits that all their sins will be held back as well. This seems like an exaggerated reward, but consider, anger is often the gateway to other sins. In anger, we speak lashon hara, evil speech. We hurt others, we act destructively. Stop anger at its source, and you've prevented a cascade of other wrongs. Your relationships will transform. People will want to be around you. Your spouse will feel safe with you. Your children will seek your counsel rather than fearing your wrath. Your colleagues will respect you more, not less. And you'll reclaim that Zelem Elohim, that divine image. You'll become the person you were meant to be, reflecting the patience and compassion of the divine. Let me close with a story from the Talmud. A man once approached Hillel, one of the greatest sages, and said he could make him angry. Hillel, famous for his patience, said, "Try." The man came on a Friday afternoon, when Hillel was preparing for Shabbat, and asked ridiculous questions. "Why are Babylonians' heads round?" Hillel answered patiently. The man came back again and again with more absurd questions. Finally, frustrated, the man said, "You've cost me 400 zuz. I bet I could make you angry." Hillel replied, "Better you should lose 400 zuz than I should lose my temper." What was Hillel teaching? That peace of mind, self-control, and relationships are worth far more than being right, than defending our ego, than giving in to anger. Friends, mastering anger is not easy. It's perhaps the hardest work we'll ever do, but it's also the most important. Because in conquering anger, we don't just improve our lives, we become more fully human, more deeply connected to the divine spark within us. Tonight I challenge you. Pick one strategy we've discussed, just one. Commit to practicing it for 40 days. Notice the changes, and then add another. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. The journey to becoming a person of patience, wisdom, and peace begins with a single moment of choosing calm over chaos. May we all merit to master this fire within us, transforming its destructive potential into the warmth of compassion and the light of wisdom. Thank you.